Schmooze or lose. Get your geek on. Schmooze or lose. Get your geek on. Sci-fi, comics, fantasy, so much more. Just come and see. Schmooze or lose.
Hey, Schmooze or Lose fans, it's time to get your geek on. We got a great show tonight. I have some co-hosts with me, Paul Cohen, who does cinematography and photography with us for our TV series and the Film Hunters and everything else we do. I got Alex with us, who does a lot of creature building and creations and does acting for our TV series. And our special guest who we're interviewing is none other than Stephen Costantino. And I hope I didn't massacre your name, did I?
No, you think Costantino? Yeah, you did good. No,
yeah. I speak Hebrew very well and several other languages, but some reason Italian and Portuguese names I mess up and I just kind of slobber all over them.
Oh, great, because it's very smooth language, you know?
Yeah. It's just counterintuitive to me when you're speaking like German or Hebrew. It's, I don't know. I always end up messing the languages up. But anyway, Stephen, it's great that you come on the show. And how's the weather out in California?
Oh, today's beautiful. We had quite some rain and we need it, which is good.
I mean, the weather's not too bad here. I have to take a Tauntaun out to get groceries. You know, it's about that cold.
Yeah, I know. I'm from New Jersey, so I paid my dues.
Yeah, we're here in South Boston. So to get started, we'll talk about your time on Jedi, but I want to get started talking about your music first. You're a very accomplished musician. You play with a lot of famous people. And personally, when I first started listening to your music, I was kind of blown away. Like, you've got really great tonality in your voice, your guitar playing, everything's just, you know, I was beside myself. I was pretty impressed with, and myself, I've been playing music since the 80s, and I'd recorded on a few albums, and I've been playing bass guitar, so I know my music. You're really good. I was very impressed.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So what got you into music in the first place?
It was kind of naked. I was born, you know, I found a picture, I guess I had a little ukulele or something. I must have been like 3 or 4 years old. I didn't send you a picture, but I'm holding it like I know everything already. When I look at it, wow. I didn't know, but I do. The experience in my hand seemed like it's been traveling around for quite some time.
So as a child, you were doing some self-fulfilling prophecy there.
Yeah, and then as a teenager, you know, we came out of, well, I'm from Hoboken, so Frank Sinatra, well, the great Count Basie, all the great bands, you know, Gil Evans, all that great stuff was happening. And then New Jersey had a lot of Latin scene, Cuban, Puerto Rican. We had the great bands, Tito Puente and all that. So it was very diverse. And then, of course, rock and roll hit, and then rock. And the Guard, you know, in a good week, I go see Zeppelin, and I go see Lou Reed at the Bottom Line. And then, you know, I go see Harold Melvin with the Blue Notes at the Starship. So it was so, and there was no boundaries. We just loved everything.
That's a very diverse scheme of music there. It's really good bands.
Well, soul music and rock, they all come from the blues and then jazz, you know. So as soon as Charlie Christian plugged his guitar with Dorsey, that was kind of it. Yeah.
Nice. So question. You first started playing on what, guitar? Was that your first instrument?
Well, I got drums first, and I could never get the sticks real. I could play really well at percussion, but the sticks, you know.
And then so you later just
guitar.
Into playing guitar.
Yeah. Seeing Zeppelin and Beck and all, you know, Clapton, all those incredible ZZ Top here. You know, there's so many great players. John McLaughlin.
So what kind of music, as a quote unquote, you cut your teeth on? What was your first like influences, like styles of music that you were playing?
Well, I think the first thing that kind of drew me in the look was the Meet the Monkees, I think maybe. That album, the white belts and the show. And I didn't know it was Glenn Campbell and the you know, the what do they call they had a big documentary on it. The studio guys that made all that stuff, Don Kirshner with Glenn Campbell, the Wrecking Crew.
Nice.
I don't know, the record, you know, there's something that drew me to that. It's the record. I found out latest best musicians in the world. You know, Ann Kay, the bass player, I think it was. She's incredible. And Sonny and Cher and the Beach Boys. So that was my, memory. And of course, Ed Sullivan, my grandfather, we watch every Sunday, see the Beatles and Stones.
Yeah.
And all those. So all that stuff and getting albums. I mean, I just voracious as far as collecting albums and just waiting for the show and learning by ear. I was never the greatest sight reader because stuff came out of me. I felt like I created stuff, and that was how it was written. And I learned to read later, but a lot of stuff was the ear. And it's not like now we can go on a tutorial and all these great tunings and drop tunings. We didn't know that. Like the Rain song by Zeppelin, there's a I think it's an A sharp tuning, and it makes it so simple. But trying to play the standard, it was a struggle. So you say, wow, how am I ever going to get that proper? But now, it's all come around. But I was able to pick things up in my ear. I go see the show and then try some more. And you kind of learn. I didn't know that Keith Richards had one string missing and he opened G. And if you tune like that now, it hits you. It's like, oh, that's the creative process. That's the genesis. And that's the only way to get that sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I found as a musician myself, doing, cover songs for bands, trying to recreate, the sound that band had, like say if it's a bass player, and it's just trying to figure out like what type of EQ equipment they had, and even the type of amps you're plugging into, and the type of bass and the type of strings they use. I mean, everything plays into the picture, and sometimes it's hard to recreate a certain sound. So that leads into a golden question.
Can I interject one thing? That's a misconception, because later on I go see the bands and Hendrix or whatever, Page has stacks of Marshalls. But then you learn later, as a producer now, an engineer, of course, they had little boutique amps like a Supro or a little Deluxe in the studio. And because of the room and the way they did stereo miking and stuff, they made it used. So you always thought you had, they got a bunch of Marshalls, they're rocking. It's not like that.
Yeah.
So even James Jamerson, you say Motown, that's a direct sound. He's probably, or Ampeg direct out. I don't think they mic the basses in the studio, only live. And it gave that punchy, the Ampeg is a classic.
Which leads to this question. I always like to ask this for people who've been playing music a long time. What is your favorite guitar? Like, what is just your Cadillac of guitars to play on?
Oh God,
that's a tough question.
I've been quite a few. I didn't know what they were going to be worth. I had Les Paul, Black Beauty one time, and I love Gibson.
The Gibson Les Paul guitars just have such a beautiful sound to them.
Yeah, well, I have a 347, very rare. They only made 4 years, which is like a 335, but they put a block in the middle, even though it has semi-hollow F-holes, and that thing screams. I mean, Marshall Tucker. I love that. I love my Strat. I mean, I love my Taylor Maple for all the things writing. I write an acoustic, and electric is a different thing. So now at this point, I have my Fenders. I have my Matus, I got a Firebird from Gibson not too long ago, which is awesome, and it has a mini humbuckers that Johnny Winter used to play. And it's all that I can capture that kind of classic sound. If it tends for a Strat, I want a little, more of a top end, and I want that crystally sound, that bell tones. I'll get a Strat.
Yep.
Gibson. Well, I love the Allman Brothers, so that's the Les Paul. I love SGs. I mean, I love it all now. When I was young, anything got into my hands, and I wish I had some of that stuff left, because some of that stuff is like 30 plus grand.
I started out playing Fender P-Bass Precision, and I just I've played a lot of basses, but I always go back to the P-Bass or the Fender Jazz, which are
if I was a bass player, that would be it. If you ask me that question as a bass, which I kind of am, but those would be my go-to. I mean,
that's always been my go-to.
I mean, Rickenbacker is cool because I like Chris Squire, and yes, but but it's for certain things. There's nothing that covers everything like a P-Bass. There's no two ways about it.
When I was playing a lot of Rush and listening to Geddy Lee, like I was dying to get a Rickenbacker, but I was a poor college student and high school student, and really couldn't. My pockets weren't that deep. So, and Rickenbackers. I mean, at one point, I don't know if it's still like that. I mean, it's really difficult. You have to do a special order to get a good one, and then, I mean, it's the same price as buying a decent car. I mean, difference.
Well, you got to play because when I got my Taylor, when they first came out, I like a darker sound. These days, I like a parlor guitar, even smaller for recording. But we went for maple because it's good live and it's good in the studio, not too dark like the Rosewoods or the Brazilian woods. And I went to 12 of them. And then the guy working with me, he said, get a matchbox back instead of a 3-piece. So it's from the same tree. And so I went through 12 of them to get that right one. I mean, I played a $100,000 Martin, the Liberty, made from a Liberty tree at NAMM, and he brought it out. I don't know if it was set up, but I said, this is not the greatest playing guitar, but it's a piece of artwork. So, you know, even with Strats, all that stuff, then you got to get them set up. But there's the guitars will call to you, you know. Usually I love those picking and you find one in the closet or, you know, that kind of thing.
Yep.
It's really exciting because the DNA in that guitar already and experience that's embedded. So, you know, I love gear. I mean, I'm a gearhead.
Yeah. So that leads me into this. You played with a lot of famous different people, like sit-in sessions, done some gigs. Talk about some of the most memorable to you. Like, do some name dropping here.
Well, New York, when I was a kid, was in the garage or the basement playing Allman Brothers and learning the Stones. And then when I moved to LA, well, I was in Marin County first. So Marin was the Mecca, the Dead, Airplane. And I was lucky to be in San Anselmo. Marty Ballin from the Airplane had a studio. I met the guys from Santana, Mike Carabello, Dave Brown. The Dead was always around. There's a big Dead following in Jersey for some reason. I don't know why, but it was always huge, even as a kid. We had a lot of friends that, I did 200 Dead shows, you know. And Jerry Garcia, Reconstruction with Merle Sanders, I go see him. And Elvin Bishop, you know, I was just a great thing to absorb because those guys have all had their trial and errors. And Marin is a great utopian kind of place to be musically, you know, later on if you make some money, because it's not cheap to live there, but it also has a bohemian feel to it, you know, part of it, even though it's blue blood. So it was an incredible time to just play with people like Mike Carabello had some jams, and my friend Jose Neto, who's with Steve Winwood now, taught me a lot of Brazilian licks. He used to be Harry Belafonte guitars. And then I come to LA and I go get a job at an office supply place. And the guy's running it is Hugh Van Patten and a few other guys. But Hugh was a beautiful black guy, beautiful smile, like Belafonte or like, what's his name? Just Sidney Poitier kind of look. He just had this glow. And it turned out he's a film aficionado and also teaches acting, Stanislavski and all that. And also is a martial arts expert, but special forces. And he goes, one of my best students, I'd love you to meet him because he plays bass. It was Corey Dee Williams. And we met. I went up to see him he lived with Billy Dee at the time, his dad. And we started playing. That was it. It was like, it didn't stop. It was like, that's all we lived for. And that's some of the pictures I sent you with Corey at the beginning days. And that led to Jedi, you know?
So you playing music led to you being in Return of the Jedi, which is amazing.
And Corey as well. Corey wasn't really an actor. He's been on sets. He's very athletic. He's great standing in. And that April, his dad came in. His dad very supportive of us, Billy, and let us use the garage, got us some gear. And we had the people going through there. Verdine White would teach Corey some bass from Earth, Wind and Fire. Martha Reeves. We were like, you know, they come in, hey, Peter Hedson, and very supportive, you know, all the artists around us. And Billy Dee said we're kind of alternatives because we're both from the East Coast. So the diversity is there. Corey is the funk, like No Tomorrow, like Brother Johnson or Lewis Johnson from the Brother Johnson.
So he does like the Lewis Johnson slap.
Well, probably Sly, you know, Larry Graham. He loves that. I mean, he's a rhythm machine on that. And his understanding of music, you know, from jazz and everything, we both had a great understanding. So it was a great match. You know, I had the funk in me. I could be funky as hell, but I could also sing Neil Young, you know?
Yeah.
So that was incredible. And then Billy wanted him to come to Arizona to stand in it. He said, coming up, you know, soon in April, a few weeks. And he goes, oh, it's going to be 120 degrees. We're doing a development deal. We're at the kind of height of our creativity right now. We want to finish up. And Billy said, why don't you bring Steve along with the guitar? And I wasn't even hired to work. I was just a guest with all the amenities, which is great. I was very grateful. And we get there, and I was playing every night in a hotel with Corey, killing it, and everybody's dancing, Carrie Fisher, and it was great. We put a great vibe, out, because we had a lot of love and compassion, and we love sharing. It was like we were so locked in because of martial arts as well. We weren't putting it out there, we were sucking everybody in. It was like, and by the fourth day, driving out to the desert, 45 minutes, the solid pit, the wide angle lens, shots, the sand blowing away on the solid pit, it was long days. And it was an incredible experience meeting Stuart Freeborn and Kenny and everyone on the set, and the whole Busy Bee thing going on, and building a metropolis. I was awestruck. But Howard Kazanjian took Billy out one night for dinner, the producer, and Corey and I were guests. And I said, Howard, I don't know how to say this, but can I work? I'll work for free. I appreciate everything you're doing. And he goes, oh, I'll get you into something. That could have been a scorpion cleanup in the morning. I don't know. I would have done anything. Because under the set, they had buckets of scorpions they would go through. I mean, that was the first thing they did, getting a set together so no one got hurt or bitten. So we go the next day, and they put me in a Gamorrean Guard suit. And they draw some footsteps on the barge, and my peripherals are off, but I follow the footsteps to know how to be where the camera wants it to be. And we go out at Mark and I. In the meantime, there's a picture of my mask off, Billy Dee took, and then I took a few Polaroids, and that was put away, never put out. And then about, I guess, 15 years ago, somewhere around there, the picture came out in Atlanta at the Dragon Con, or one of the things there. Corey lives there now. His dad was doing a show, and it comes up of Corey with the mask off. And all these fans from England go, mate, do you ever sign autographs? I said, no, I never thought of that. Why? They go, can we send you some items? So I get like 60 items in the mail with a check. And I said, this can support this can support my music career.
Like this.
And sure enough, I sign them, and they go up, and they like my handwriting, because I got my mom's handwriting I inherited. And they were saying how lovely my handwriting was. And then Corey and the appearance agent at the time that handled Billy, called up and started taking us out and telling the story with Billy, doing Q&As. And it was so exciting. And I haven't looked back since, It's just,
nice. Yeah, I'm going to put this on the screen here. There's your autograph right there on my Gamorrean Guard.
Yeah.
Beautiful autograph. And I actually, my friend runs a store, Rubber Chicken Comics, Jay, and he happened to have that when I saw you. And I actually got two of those signed. I gave one to my nephew, and I got to put this on the screen. Here you are in the early 80s. This is my original 80s Gamorrean Guard action figure I kept all these years. I never knew I was going to meet one of the original Gamorreans as a kid.
I love going out on the road. I mean extraordinary people like yourself, and certain people like you. We have an innate, it's automatic. I meet extraordinary people, but there's key people like yourself. I feel like we've been the same tribe. And I've been blessed with that, with Corey, certain key people in my life that my best friends, and I feel like a family, a nomads, or a tribe, and it's almost like we have a knowing together.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Some people just click. You have similar backgrounds. Like, you got a martial art background. I've been doing martial arts for 45 years now, and playing music, and I've been a sci-fi geek and buff as well. So it's like we're birds of a feather, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
I was going to ask you something. I talked to Felix Sela, who played Tweaky on Buck Rogers, and he was in Return of the Jedi. He was the Ewok that was on the hang glider,
right?
And he was telling me horror stories of how hot it was where they were filming. I think they filmed that in Anaheim, California, the Redwood Forest, and getting in that costume, it was just like so hot. And he said a lot of the Ewok actors were passing out and everything. I'd heard stories from Jerome Blake, who played. I'm really good friends with Jerome. He played 7 different characters in Phantom Menace. He was one of the Monteshewans in the Fifth Element, and I got to hear a lot of stories from him as well.
He sings, but does Jerome sing, by the way? Not the Jerome sings, doesn't he? Jerome sings.
Huh?
Jerome
He sings and plays guitar. He's
well,
really
we
good.
jammed together in Burnley, UK. At the Burnley that night, he came up with Blues Harvest.
Yeah.
I was playing with them. You know, I was doing a show there, and Jerome was signing, and he came up and sang some blues with us. That's pretty cool. Haven't seen him for a while.
Wow, it's a small world, isn't it?
I know it is.
Yeah, Jerome will call me. We'll talk on the phone for hours and stuff. He come and done some shows with me. We just signed autographs, doing some appearances and things, and he stayed with my family in Kentucky and stuff. But really nice guy, and again, a Star Wars guy and a musician. So I can see how he clicked with you pretty fast.
Yeah. He said, "What a great band, Blues Harvest." By the way, the drummer Andy and I track with him now. I send him a click with all the stuff done, and sends back the drums. And I, 1 or 2 takes, I mix them in. That's what you. Well, you didn't hear the new stuff I'm working on, but we're doing a record. I'm doing a retrospective with all the people I play with, because I don't know how else to put it out there, and I feel it needs to be put out there in that way. Not like we're trying to sell. We're just trying to tell you a story. All the new stuff,
Nice.
which a lot of songs that were written years ago have come with the age. And so the costume, by the way, when they took the
So like, how long did it take to get into that? And I'm
Well,
guessing you guys burned up in those costumes.
120 degrees, but we had the sail barge, and it kept saying dry heat. And the feet, the hands, the head, round dark circles around my eyes with makeup, and the top, and that was pretty much it. But when I had to breathe, they put a blow dry in my mouth. I'm trying to find a picture of that at times to cool me off as well. And when I take the top half over, it's like Humpty Dumpty. Corey would have to hold me up, because I don't want to commit to taking the bottom with the feet and everything. So yeah, it was pretty hot, but you didn't think about that, you just went with it.
So let's jump to the elephant in the room, the new Boba Fett series, which is awesome. I love that. I love Mandalorian. And to be honest with you, I like the original Star Wars. I like the prequels. I didn't like the newer movies as well, just my opinion, but I really like what Jon Favreau has done with the Mandalorian. I love it. I love Boba Fett, and I really like how they showed that the Gamorreans really aren't evil. They just serve, like they're very loyal to whoever they serve.
Like a gladiator.
And they're like, in a way, they're like, alien samurais. They're very, they have like this code of honor that they serve their lord or whoever. And I thought they did a great job with the Gamorreans there in that show. And I'm like, and when I first watched that, I was like, oh my God, Stephen's got to be loving this.
Well,
so I thought of you as soon as I saw
it was, I'm starting to figure it out now, because I've read that the guards had to fight to the death, and obviously I survived to get killed at the barge. I didn't know the timeline, So they're thin MMA fighters in Mandalorian? Before, no. Is in Boba Fett, is that them before? No, it's after. So obviously, being around Jabba, we were gluttons and gained a lot of weight, and people are saying maybe they had, less, it was more cushy at that time. It's like they being with Jabba is like they became sergeants or something, opposed to when they were younger, they had to really work at, they were like privates. You know what I mean? And it's funny how they get thinner as time goes on. And the opening scene of Boba Fett is the aftermath of the barge, which is incredible. Yeah. And the spirituality running through it, because he's more anyway. I don't know if you saw Once for Warriors, his movie. Have you ever seen the New Zealand film? Once for Warriors? Oh, check it out. Once for Warriors. Incredible film. So the spirituality he comes from to begin with, and in the desert reminded me of Carla Castaneda, or Peyote Quest, because I did a movie a few years back with Willie Nelson and the First Nation Cree Indians in British Columbia with Billy Worth and Ray Dunchong. And they do the ceremony as a man. It's almost like bar mitzvah. But for the indigenous, they give them, peyote, and they find their totem, and that's their manhood. Almost like, they did with the bug going up his nose. He had a vision and went on a vision quest.
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful thing. The spirituality.
Yeah, before I seen that episode, my friend from Kentucky, his name's Rodney. He's one of my martial arts students. He was like, "So, did you like the Native American aspects of Boba Fett?" And I hadn't seen an episode, so I thought he was talking about the episode before. And I was like trying to think. I was like, okay, but when I watched the episode, it was like really beautiful the way it was almost like a metaphor, analogy, or whatever of rites of passage that were done among many of the tribes in Native American tribes. It's,
period.
I just think they're doing such a good job with the series, and like for you, you're going to be pretty popular now at Comic Cons because Gamorreans are like in the limelight now in the Star Wars world, and mainstream.
I know. Imagine in a million years, like Mandalorian, see him in the first shot, and the first thing I saw was the pop came up as a fighter. I said, "They got a toy already? Baby Yoda," and that, and Boba Fett was the first toy to go. I said, "This is pretty extraordinary here. This is something I could never imagine." I mean, and that now seeing this, they're like his henchmen. There's a newfound love, and I'm sure Pop's going to come out with something new. But it's great that it can be tied to the whole story like that. And in the originals, we had armor, we had everything. I mean, you can't beat that, obviously. The way we looked in the original trilogy.
Yep, absolutely.
We have a lot more going on. Yeah. Did you watch Gallery? Did you watch the Gallery, all of them?
Yeah.
When they did, Favreau kept trying the Jungle Book. Let's put it in Adam Adric in the front, like the lion head, and have the background. If we get that moving in Jungle Book or, Lion King later on, the immersive, that really fueled. Oh, how do we put the actor in the scene, immerse him, so for better acting? Because looking at a green screen, imagining you're not going to act as well. There's a disconnect. And so all that with ILM and everything growing to that, they were all looking for that next option. And then they said, well, LEDs, everything could be in real time behind us. We immerse them, and the volume set that changed. That's like, developing the camera all of a sudden. It's incredible. You can shoot Lawrence Arabia as an interior, and that's what a lot of guys that go out. And when I do these shows at Mandalorian, got people there. They say they're so immersive all around them that they really feel like they're in the scene. The sun goes down as if it was truly going down, and they make the foreground with sand or whatever it's going to be, and the props. And when they're in the scene, they're really feeling it. It's like a ride.
Yeah, George Lucas caught a lot of flack for the droid battle in The Phantom Menace because it was all CGI, and it just looked it looked too cartoony in a sense, for lack of a better word. And that's what I like about Boba Fett and Mandalorian. They're using costume creatures. I mean, these are people in suits. Yeah. So they're putting some CGI for like background and for some of the ships and certain scenes. But when you're looking at the creatures and everything, they're going old school like they did original Star Wars. Yeah. It's actually men in the mask, men and women in the mask. And I really like that. And because you can't, when you're using CGI and you're trying to mix actors and CGI too much, the human eye can still tell the difference between the light and something's off.
That's the problem.
But if you look at like Boba Fett and what they're doing now, it fits so well actually having people in the costumes or the aliens. It looks so much better.
That's the LEDs. The LEDs, thousands of LEDs, I mean, it's incredible. I think probably a lot of studios are going to build those sets now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what they're doing a perfect blend of like what you're talking about, like the LED sets, and then the creatures, and then putting CGI in to enhance here and there. Yeah, and it looks so much better.
Oh, absolutely. And what's great too, there's no scrutiny involved like the prequels and the sequels. They go from the books. They can go to Rebels, a cartoon, take a piece of that, animated, and make a whole story out of it in all the books, and doing it with unbiased and paying homage to all the great films like Apocalypse Now, and you can see that streaming through it. So I love that. I mean, I'm so glad they finally got to that, because the prequels and sequels just so much scrutiny, and who likes this, who likes that. It was just, I'm over it. I don't want to, it's not synchronized. But this, I love this because it's infinite in a way that it can keep entertaining in a great way, in a fulfilling way. It's not going to peter out and get jaded. And
they need to pull you in as an extra and just have you do a cameo in like maybe one of the bars or something, which would be great. And have
in
a
your movie,
walk by.
in your movie?
Well, in Boba Fett series.
Oh, I'd like to do some music, honestly.
Yeah, but you need to do a cameo
that'd be cool.
too.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool. And maybe like have a Gamorrean walk by and just kind of look at you, and you guys stare at each other, and like an inside joke.
Yeah, Rodriguez always plays guitar all day on the set, and they're saying you got to get Robert. You know, I was in Austin. I didn't get to go see his studio, but you know, I've been thinking about that in the back of my head. There'll be the day that clicks, and it's good that it went this far. It's not, you know, now with the Boba Fett, that's even getting closer to that.
Yeah, the other guy on our show right now, Alex, he builds costumes, and you'll get to meet him at some point for our TV series. He's built Frost Giant, Satyr, werewolves. I mean, he's got some beautiful costumes. So
I led the Jedi for the music, as we said, and Corey, and then you know, that time passed, and I moved to Malibu at the time with my girlfriend, and our mom was managing us, and we were like Fleetwood Mac, my girlfriend Gentry at the time. And in the meantime, an extraordinary thing happened too with Billy Dee and Corey, which are they're like my guardian angels. One of our drummers was Tony Zawinul. His dad was Joe Zawinul from Weather Report. So I got to meet Wayne Shorter and the Weather Report crew, and be around that was incredible because I was such a fan, like, of that stuff. It was like beyond me. And Tony Zawinul wound up living with me in Malibu for a while after I had broken up with my girlfriend. And we had a band for a while. And then I moved back into Hollywood. And I met Billy Wirth. I played a club, Billy Wirth from Lost Boys, Death by Stereo. And he played with his band Dust and Bones at this band Rubber, at this club Rubber. And I had the VIP role. I was in engineering school at that time, about a year in. I had a 2-year program. And I went to a school called Trebas to learn the lingo. And extraordinary thing happened there. My teacher, most of my class was Malcolm Cecil, who just passed. And he designed the keyboard Tonto with Robert Margoloff, who produced my CD recently.
Yeah.
And with me. And that was the ARP and the Moog and everything else, but it was all hands-on. They had no USB or MIDI to connect them. So they went on to, you know, put an album out with all these sounds, and all those sounds you hear probably was heard on every record of Met, Moody Blues to ELP. But then Stevie Wonder heard and came in and said, how do I get the sound? And the rest is history. They produced every Stevie Wonder album from Filling the First Finale and Music on My Mind up to Keys of Life. And so Malcolm and I became good friends, and I met Margoloff back then, and that we'll go back to that. In the meantime, I meet Billy Wirth, and we started a band called The Cronies. And we did some really great stuff, but money would always run out. You never got to mix it fully in the big studios.
Yeah.
We had a thing with Maverick for a minute, Guy Asiri, Madonna's label, at A&M. And we recorded some great stuff. And, you know, I listen to it now. That's part of my timeline. I'm going to, Gamorrean Sound, this album I'm making, but we just finished the cover. It's going to be new and old. Billy Wirth wrote a lot of songs with me now for my learning curve of making records with Margoloff, you know, Malcolm Cecil's partner, who designed Tonto as well. I use that now, how to make records, mix and master. So it takes time, takes a few years. And being able to do it at home, all the stuff that's been, I never realized. I realized it live where I touch people with it, and songs that Billy and I have written. But I'm getting to realize in the studio in a great, simple way. It's solid, sounds, you know, like I want to hear it. And my vocals, everything, I'm able to do that beautifully. And so we're revisiting all that. And then the next thing happened, after that kind of went out, I met Brett Mazer. And he was the mix king then. He was remixing with Madonna and Prince and Seal. And he had done Belle Belle DeVoe, Poison, and all that.
Yeah.
And he was had a residency at Scotty Brothers Records, which was a complex that took the whole block. You know, for the whole block was, and they had little cottages in it. It was like not far from Santa Monica. And actually, Weird Al was doing a documentary that I was producing, Walk After Midnight. He's going to be in it, and I had my friend that directed one of the producers said, "Can you pick him up?" I had a new car then. I picked up Weird Al and driving him to Santa Monica. He was known. People were going, "Hey, Weird Al, Al." And as a passing Scotty Brothers, like a premonition, he goes, "That's what I did my on my first records with the Scotty Brothers." And years later, I wound up working there. Black Eyed Peas, Brett got them signed. Nice. And those guys were like 16, 17 coming in, watching. We did the comeback for New Edition that never got released because they were all platinum artists at that time. And Bell Biv DeVoe, Trevant, Bobby Brown did Prerogative and Ghostbusters, all that. And so we said, "Oh, this is the no-brainer. We're going to kill us. You don't have to worry." Mary J. Blige did a rap on it. It only came out in the biop they did on TV in a scene, but never got released because they broke up because they had the problems. And we did that. And Brett, anything he brought, I put that guitar on. And the guitar I did on "You Don't Have to Worry" was so cool, the way it sounded. Brett later on started Crazy Town. He wanted to always have his Beastie Boys. And Crazy Town had the Gift of Game, Come Come My Lady. You hear it on everything. And so you see, I always loved the guitar. And since they didn't release New Edition on MCA fully, can I use that on something else? I said, of course. So if you listen to Revolving Door, that guitar is the same guitar, two different songs, which is,
wow.
I don't know how many. I have the original New Edition stuff, and it's pretty cool that the guitar lives in two different songs and without losing integrity. So Brett and I, to this day, he now,
at some point we need to get you back on here with Corey Williams and talk about playing music together and stuff, because I would love to have both of you in the same interview.
Yeah, we did that one so long ago. I miss him a lot. And every time we come to town, we wind up here, no matter what's going on in town for the premiere or whatever. He went with his dad, and we wound up here that night, But yeah, we did a show, and it was great because we just have nothing but love and, for each other now more than ever, And
when I met Billy Dee Williams in Boston, and he was just such a polite person, really nice, just
class
and
act. Class act.
And being such a big actor and stuff, he didn't have any like that air about him of just being snooty or anything. He was just down to earth, really nice, and it was really a pleasure speaking with him.
He's
really
an
nice
artist.
guy.
There's a difference. You could be an actor, but if you're not an artist, I think an artist can paint, act, play music. A true artist. Billy's a true artist.
Well, here's the thing. Like, Star Wars was such a big success, massive, and they pulled another main character in out of the blue, Lando Calrissian, and a lot of times when movies do that, it just doesn't work. The chemistry isn't there. But when the first time seeing him on the screen interacting with Harrison Ford, is just like, I was sold. I was like, okay, Lando is part of the world. I mean, he's done such a great job.
Charming actors too. They have a lot of charm. So even if you don't like him, you like him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. The whole cast is tremendous. But yeah, Billy Dee Williams, he definitely added a lot to the dynamics of the group.
Yeah, he changed Corey changed my life, man. Too much Corey changed my life. And
we definitely I would love to get Corey on the show with you, and we can just talk about music. And I want to hear both you guys together telling your back in the days playing music, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of stories. But let's jump into some pictures. We want to share. You have some awesome personal pictures, and this is just like looking at history. So let's look at the first picture here. Paul's going to throw a picture up on screen for us here. There we go.
Well, that's a picture they use on the barge. That's me. That's me in the barge. Just my eyes. And Dickie Beers and I've been doing a lot of shows, and he says, "That's you." But the one where Kerry's biting the tooth.
Yeah,
that was with Dickie. I didn't know, but at that point, Dickie passed out during lunch in our costume. He was dehydrated. And the lunch bell went off, and everybody ran off the set because you don't have much time. It's like the military. And he was passed out, and then he wakes up, Princess Leia looking over him, helping him revive. And then she bit his tooth there, and he told me that. Wow. My old agent gave me those pictures, and I said, I'll never use that. He goes, I'll never use that either. So we have a gentleman's agreement on that, which is great. But he almost, I didn't know he almost he felt like he was going to die.
Yeah, Dickie was one of the stuntmen for Boba Fett, right? Through
Boba Fett, the Guard, a
Yeah.
lot of stuff.
Yeah, I finally got to meet him, I think, at MegaFest. Was in up here in New England. Okay, let's look at the next picture.
I was there with you.
Oh yeah, we were there together.
Yeah. So
Okay,
these stories now, that's incredible. You get a lot of the artists going out. People have done all the building and the animatronics, and it's fascinating because those stories really are the fabric of the whole movie. It's one thing, the actors, which are great, they got the great characters, but without the people that do the cornerstones, it wouldn't happen. I mean,
not at all. Okay, Paul, let's put up the next picture. Okay,
let's go to the next one. On the barge.
That's you on the barge. Just go to the next picture, Paul. There we go.
There's me and Corey. Corey is clock 2, myself holding the mask, and that's a little candid shot with Mark Hamill in his robe and underwear and the honey.
Man, Mark looks so young there. Oh my gosh.
Mark, what about us? We do too.
You haven't aged today.
There's the Blue Harvest shirt that I still have.
With Corey's, I've never met Corey and haven't really seen him, but like just looking at this picture, you can see a lot of, you can tell he's Billy Dee Williams' son. They have the same facial expression.
That's why I stand in.
Okay, let's go to the next picture.
That's a slide that Ralph Nelson Jr., the still photographer, took. And it's on a slide, and it says Revenge of the Jedi, and it's all there. And I have that. I'm not going to take a slide around because I feel it's priceless.
It is because a lot of people may not know that, but originally it was called Revenge of the Jedi. Yeah, and they thought, well, the Jedi, they're good and they're following the good side of the Force, so they would return, but not necessarily for revenge. So then they decided it just didn't sound right.
It was a little derogatory. Yeah, it was a little derogatory.
Yeah, so if you can find anything, I'm a big Star Wars collector. You should see my collection. I started collecting in '77 and it's not stopped. But anyways, if you can find anything with Revenge of the Jedi on it, it's worth a lot.
Yeah. So okay. I took a picture to share it with people. So
yeah, I love having a guest on the show that gives us pictures to look at, because to me it's just like looking at history. Yeah, it's like going through a museum and you're sharing personal things, and it's just awesome.
And they can't go to the next because we were loving it. We were there to work in a different way. It's like we didn't go through agents and all this. We were there, and we just were so grateful to be there, and it shows. Okay, this is Billy's house up in Mulholland.
So this is Billy Dee Williams' house.
Yeah, that's us playing. That's the garage. We had the studio set up.
Nice. And that's Corey playing bass and you playing guitar. Yeah. What kind of bass is Corey playing there?
That was a funny thing too, because he got an Ibanez, and when I moved to California, I couldn't take all my guitars, so I sold a lot of stuff off. And I didn't have much, but then I moved to the Bay Area, and I saw an Ibanez with a straight through neck, a double octave neck, with all the woods. I wish I still had that. And I had that. And when I met him, I said, "What do you play?" He goes, "Ibanez." I said, "I got an Ibanez too." So that was another thing at that time. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
What's funny, I've been looking to get another bass, and I've been looking at Ibanez's. So Corey, my next axe maybe an Ibanez.
Those are great. Ibanez Music Man, a great bass too. Music Man. But Corey was looking for a bass because his other one was sitting in the closet. He hadn't played for a while. And as we're going out, I said, he goes, what kind of, he was talking about bass. What do you think I should get? I said, well, let me go to NAMM and look at, and Bootsy, who he loves Bootsy, was there. I meet Bootsy, and Bootsy says, get a Warwick like me, man. So he bought a Babingo wood African Warwick, very sleek. He loved that. And then because we made some money on the road, he goes, I'm going to buy a bass. And just recently got a Spectre, really nice Spectre. It's like metallic gray kind of. So, he's been getting into different basses now, more of the newer stuff.
Nice. Paul, jump up, throw us up the next picture here. And tell us about this. What's going on here?
That's all of us sitting. That's some of the girlfriends. And that's Tony Zawin, the
Oh,
drummer,
wow.
Joe's son, and with the towel around his neck. Left it on the other side of him. For me, looking his left, that's Bob Chaz. He was a keyboard player, and the Charmaine was that was Corey's girlfriend, and the other girl, I don't know who she was with. Maybe Tony. That's all the crew.
Now, who's to Corey's right there in the sunglasses?
In the sunglasses, Bob Chaz.
Okay.
Bob Brown. He's a keyboard player. Still friends. He was a music
Nice.
teacher too. He was a great songwriter, almost like a Bill Withers. So we had a great style of stuff going on, you know.
Okay, let's jump up the next picture here. Let's see what's going on.
Now this is crazy because actually when I moved to LA, I was at a barbecue and I met the guy, the cowboy hat was Chomp Josephite, and he's from Buffalo. And this guy sang like from Hank Williams to George Jones. He had the most beautiful voice, big, tough guy. You know, you didn't mess with him. If he liked you, that's it. Hunter, you know, that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I met him at a barbecue. We played another thing because I love country too. So I was picking and playing acoustic with him, and we hit it off. He goes, "Hey, come to my place. I just moved out here from Buffalo. My family had a restaurant and club, and I used to play there. And this guy, Jim, who's head of Marshall and Korg, the VP, took me under his wing and brought me out here to get signed because he was working with Herbie Hancock and Wawa Watson.
Yep.
And so Chomp was in a good situation, and they gave him this beautiful apartment with a pool and jacuzzi on the roof, tennis courts. They used to film Switch with Robert Wagner there. Mr. T lived in the building, Lionel Richie. It was like this, it's now a hotel, but this beautiful building. So Fernando, my friend that came out to California with me from Uruguay, who had a butcher shop in my neighborhood, and we became friends. We, you know, sit in the back, play guitars, and he cut, you know, loins and chimichurri, Argentina, great barbecue. And we would eat like kings. Me and my barbecue just come to the place. So we get there and he's working that day at the building. And so we get in and we go on top, this cool jacuzzi, all these hot girls, and, you know, and it was a hip kind of scene. We said, we want to live here. And he came home and we lived in that building for quite a few years. And I played music with Chomp all the time. In the meantime, I'm still playing with Corey, and I would play the Palomino. So Chomp liked Corey and I playing, goes, why don't we get funky and have the band play the Palomino, which that's a Palomino there. I don't know if you're familiar with the Palomino, the history.
No, I'm not familiar. So that's the Palomino.
Well, it was a North Hollywood bar country, and that's where Clint Eastwood did Every Which Way But Loose with Sandra Locke Sings, his wife, you know, at the time.
Yeah. I've seen that movie many times.
Yeah, so all those, and that's there's a few of those, they're always at the Palomino. And it's a very famous, you know, place back then. Everybody played there. So that was us. And the DJ or the MC says, a lot of color up there tonight, you know, because it was pretty much all black band with Chomp and I, you know. But they always say, Steve, you're black. You know, you got black in you to be have that greasy funk. That greasy funk comes from Jersey, man. Cool in the Gang, you know, so many great bands.
Let's go to the toe.
Huh? Yeah, so it was Palomino. That was a great.
I said, let's jump on to the next photo.
Yeah.
Okay,
Corey
that
and I
is
done with
actually Corey.
There's the Ibanez
you-
guitars, the Ibanez, you can see.
Yep. And you guys are
Really?
jamming in, is that Billy Dee Williams' house?
Yes, the garage. Skyline.
So Star Wars fans, this is what Billy Dee Williams' garage looked like.
Yeah.
I would imagine like seeing all kinds of different Star Wars memorabilia and everything in it. But his garage looks like mine.
Well, after we did the movie, there was some boxes, the toys for the kids.
Yeah.
I got this and that. But well, Billy painted a lot.
Stuff. Okay.
Billy painted.
Let's go. Let's go to the next photo. Okay.
I ran a club up the street called the Bank Heights back then. Now it's the Federal, and it was an old bank. And it's the top floor with the motif was all Moroccan. And Billy Worth and I had Monday Madness, so we had 3 bands a week. And this particular night, that's Cliff Morrison, Jim Morrison's son.
Oh, wow.
From Blizzard
Are you
Sun
kidding
Band.
me?
And Cliff and I just hit. Billy Worth met him, and we started working together. And I started working with him. We played together, and we did the end that night. And it was funny because he sounds just like his dad, but he didn't know until like he was 15, because his mom, I think she was a police officer, but she used to hang out at the Hells Angels barbecues, and she met Jim. They had a kid. Jim went on the road. She wasn't into drugs or any of his lifestyle, and she had Cliff. But it was inevitable that she had to tell him eventually, because every pore was coming out. Not pretentious either. It was like he was a poet, and he has a Lizard Sun band. And we used to play all the time. And then he got,
Wow.
he messed up a lot. He went to prison. That's a movie right there. He went to prison because he started doing heroin, living vicariously to his dad, not knowing him and having the gift. And the sweetest guy though, but he got 3 strikes, went to prison for 10 years. And that's crazy too, because I'm doing a show. Now go back to I don't know if it's him. He might have went to West Point at one point, Cliff. And he met the Mellon family, Mellon Bank family. And Matthew Mellon became a good friend of ours. But he was kind of a rogue. Matthew was he was on a Republican financial committee, but then he would party for a few days and, go crazy with, I won't get into the debauchery. And then, go back and put his family crest on. And Mellon Bank, huge. But he had an affinity for us and music. Loved Cliff, loved the music I was doing. So he's always helpful like that. Never could really give us money, but was willing to help. We never really asked him for money. And then Cliff goes, that was the last gig, and then Cliff goes to jail 6 months later. And I'm up north. I think it was like Fresno area, maybe. It's an agricultural center up Northern California, Central California. And I'm doing a show, and this guy comes up, Chuck, and he says, "Wow, you do music? You saw my CD?" He goes, "Yeah, I used to work." Oh, Bakersfield. That's what he goes. "I used to work with Korn. Korn started Bakersfield. I did a lot of radio stuff, and now he did collector's toys." And he goes, "I'm thinking about getting back into music." I said, "With who?" He goes, "Cliff Morrison." I said, "Excuse me, Cliff Morrison?" I said, "Producer Cliff. I write songs. We did our last gig together. He's in prison." He goes, "I know. I'm his prison guard." I said, "What?" So I started sending Cliff pictures from Star Wars, because I didn't talk about Star Wars much. But this time I'm out. I'm doing shows.
Yeah.
I sent him pictures of music. He goes, "I'm getting out soon. Man, I can't wait to get back into it." So I do a show like 6 months later, and Chuck and I become friends. And he goes, "Cliff is raving about it. He's getting out soon." He goes, Matthew Mellon's been helping him get out to his, his pull, with all his money." Sure enough, I think it was it was 2019 or 2019, maybe November, before COVID. And I get a call. Cliff goes, "I'm out. I'm with Matthew Mellon. Come to the Argyle Castle that Nick Cage used to own in Argyle. We got a studio set up. I got a condo across the street. Matthew set it up." Now, in the meantime, Matthew, that year, his family, he had a trust, I guess, but I don't know enough, but I know what I read. I know from talking to him at the time, but he got into Ripple, Bitcoin with the family, and he wanted to invest. And they said, "We're a World Bank. We're not going to invest in that. Plus, you don't have the greatest reputation." When he does it, he's kind of rogue for the family compared to all the other guys who are very conservative, and his family. And he goes, "Well, I'm going to take 2 million," and he made $1 billion, and he was in Fortune magazine.
Wow.
Ripple, which is it can be actual currency. He can, it's not just virtual money. It could be changed into real money. So Matthew has a jet now. He made his own billions, right? And so I go up there, and Matthew's not there that day. I see Cliff. We talk about we can record anywhere. He has to get ID now. It's hard when you get out of prison to get all your stuff together. I remember Matthew gave him some money. He had no checking account, no ID now. It was kind of tough. He was trying to get back on his feet. But he goes, "Hey," Matthew says, "Hey, you guys, you can do anything you want, and I'll help you in any way, because I want to see this happen. You guys have been nothing but genuine." And so there was a few nights everybody's getting together, Billy Worth, all of us go to see Cliff. He's out. We have a newfound freedom. We feel like we're going to complete the cycle. And then Matthew on a Friday, Matthew now in the meantime is living at the Bel Air Hotel. He's not living at the castle. You can look up Arcot Castle, anybody, and you'll see. And I guess he had some girls there running the studio, and so Cliff said, maybe I want to record somewhere else. I have to record there because we have, full reign. So Matthew leaves to go to Mexico to get some treatment. I don't know if it's quinine. I don't know. Not, ayahuasca. I don't know what it was to keep him off opiates and alcohol.
Yeah.
And he told Billy Worth, we'll get together when I come back. We'll have a game plan. And we don't hear from him. He dies in Mexico in his room. We don't know how or why. Matthew Mel, it's all in the papers.
Oh, wow. That's horrible.
That was it. So Cliff, everything fell. I couldn't support, Cliff had his meal ticket there and was going to really, create. We're going to make, and then last time I talked to Cliff, he said he got bone cancer. He's in Palm Springs or in the desert. And he's still upbeat, optimistic. I mean, Cliff's unbelievable spirit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were like, this was a fleeting moment to happen. And not like we had all the money in the world but we had some opportunity there. I like to learn to make money like that, and we're going to be a creative force. And it was like, I guess for us to witness, but there's another meaning there, which I'm sure will put me to now, Billy Worth and all of us, we have a new appreciation, just like after COVID, you have a new appreciation for life, and you're going to do your best. Like myself, I'm losing weight now. I was always thin, and I feel it's hard on the road. When I met you, my meniscus was out. I was having a rough time, and that was it. It's just that I lost 10 pounds.
COVID, the same thing. I'm back teaching martial arts a lot. I got out running, doing martial arts again. I lost a lot of weight, getting back in shape. And, some people COVID changed positively and some it, affected negatively. It's just, how it goes. You're a singer-songwriter and you're recording your own music. You're learning, all the new digital processes for making music. How can, what's the best way for people to buy your music, whether it be digital or CD? Just go to your webpage.
Yeah, they go on any of the iTunes, Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud.
And at the end of this interview, we'll post all of your links so people can go there. Schmooze fans can check out all your stuff, and I highly recommend your music.
Well, thank you so much. The stuff you're hearing, the 4P, now that happened. That's like a catapult. It's what I'm doing now. Is I see Robert Margouleff, who was Malcolm Cecil's partner, who helped create Tonto as well. We just lost Malcolm last year or this year.
Yeah.
No, I see that this year, but it's only the beginning of this year. So last year, Malcolm we met and he goes, when I went to school, we didn't have hands-on studios. So Malcolm would go take us to big studios and he was doing Shadowfax, Robert Margouleff at Amigo, this big studio where the Eagles and everyone recorded. And I met Margouleff then during school. And so years later, he says, Malcolm always loved your music. What have you been doing? I said, well, these songs I've written, like the songs you heard, Silent Heart and all, I wrote those, but I had some of the greatest musicians. Ivan Neville played some keyboards. James Bradley Jr., who one of the finest drummers, who was 6 years old playing at Benny, what was it, Henny Young, was it? One of the shows with Nat King Cole, he did at 6 years old. He's a prodigy on drums. And then he went on to be with Chuck Mangione, Anita Baker, Earl Klug, Mary's Danish, Crazy Town, because Brett came and saw my band with Billy Worth and JBJ was playing, and said I want him to go on a row with us because he also played drums on the Beastie Boys. He was that he could play anything. And so James Bradley was on there, and also Mark Shulman from Pink, and I know back when he was a chair, played drums. So I felt like I got all these great musicians, but I don't know how to make it sound not as dated now because it was back then. So Margouleff goes, let me hear it. He goes in and we mix and master. I re-record guitars. I do the vocals over. We keep the basic tracks. And I finally got it to where I'm happy with it. And that learning curve of making albums got me to where I am now. So it's a great transition. Wow. I must say. And I can't learn enough. I love it. From analog to digital, I learned. Now we're going back to analog in a digital realm. So we're summing everything back into it. so it sounds digital. So
yeah, we're definitely gonna have to get you to do some music for our TV series.
Oh, totally, man.
Absolutely. And we're hitting over the hour mark. So I don't know if you want to keep going on, because we try to keep a show around an hour because most people won't watch past that.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to cover, or?
No, I mean, look for Gamorrean Sound. We're going to do a retrospective, and like Silent Heart, the song you heard. It's a song that it's like a song like that. I'm going to do a timeline, because beside that, we have footage. I have all this digital stuff. When I did a movie called The Starlight I produced. Billy Worth was in, Ray Don, and Willie Nelson up in BC.
Yeah.
And a lot of footage from there.
Nice.
Was on little tape beta. So I digitized everything. But I hadn't realized that when I was on a set, Ray Don Chong heard Silent Heart. And she goes, I want to sing that. Now my friend directing goes, why are you taking my lead actress? She wants to go in the studio while we're doing the show. I said, I'm not, it's up. She heard the song, she wants to do it. It's going to be on a day off. So we went in the studio and did Silent Heart. So that's one incarnation of the song. And then Julie Delphi, another French actress from American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
She was in Before Sunrise.
Yep.
Ethan Hawke and all. She's an incredible composer, actress. She was doing a short called Looking for Jimmy, and Billy Worth was in it. And that night we played, my friend ran the Irish Center. There was an Irish party. They play Irish music and great. So we got invited to play Silent Heart, and she films it, puts it in a movie. So another incarnation. So I have all the footage. So when I play those songs, I want to show a timeline of how the song keeps reinventing itself. And Billy did 5 years of Polaroids, and Billy Worth, not Billy Dee, Billy Worth, and he kept shooting on all these formats. There's 5 years of that. We're talking about digitizing now and putting a whole piece together, one by one, making this whole story. And this is the Crony years, this is New Edition years, this was Crazy Town years, this was so-and-so. So, because I go back and there's a lot of stuff that didn't ever get heard. That's really something. I mean, for the time, where now it's timely, where it kind of fits.
Wow.
Genesis of it. So it really, I'm excited about that, because I didn't know what genre. Now the way it is streaming, you can kind of do anything. Before it was like, what we just did Crazy Town. How we meet that? Okay, how do I write a hit for this? And you're chasing that genre, and it's not like that anymore. So it finally come of age, for sure. So that's really exciting. And
it's definitely completely different world now in the whole music, because of streaming and people being able to have access to record their own CDs with new computers and equipment. It's a lot accessible now to learn how to do all the new programs and create your own CDs, which we've got to work on some music together at some point too.
Mr. Fun, we're getting that. Well, you're gonna play in your niece's project, of course.
Yeah, we'll do with my niece, and then I definitely want to pull some bass in with you and some guitar and work on some songs.
Well, I come to you live in Boston, but your family's in Kentucky. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But you go to Kentucky.
My family lives in Kentucky, but I live south of Boston.
Where's your niece? In Kentucky or in
she's in Kentucky. Yeah.
So we need to get some shows where we make a whole thing, and I stay a week, we record, we have some fun.
Absolutely.
Some signings. I don't know. Comic book shows are great when you do one little show, like going to Maine. He set up 5 or 6.
Well, that's what we need to do, is do one Comic Con and then go to like 4 or 5 different comic stores.
Exactly.
Yeah, we can make that happen. Not a problem.
Okay. And if you need music for any of his, send me the link for your series. I'd like to see it. What you guys, doing as far as your pilot, you have those series, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll get all connected with that. We're probably gonna have to start wrapping up. So, man, it was great having you on here. It's so many awesome stories, and I learned a whole lot about all your connections and things. And like I said, we need to get you back on here with Corey Williams and just hear you guys talk about back in the music days, and maybe get Billy Dee Williams to stick his head over in the camera for a second to say hi.
I don't know. That's a tough one.
Be very difficult.
So we'll talk about that. He's he goes out occasionally, but I don't know. He's not as young as he used to be.
Yeah.
you know. And
yeah, we'll get some more Star Wars guests, and maybe we'll interview them together.
yeah, I know a lot of Star Wars guests that will come on, you know. Absolutely. Hello, can you hear me?
Absolutely. So, Schmooze Loose fans, this was Stephen. You heard his story. Awesome stuff. Me and him will probably stay tuned. We'll probably co-host the show together some with some more Star Wars celebrities. And I know a lot of musicians will get on here and stuff and just have a good time. Again, Stephen, man, thanks for coming on the show. It was awesome.
My pleasure, man. And you're a brother, man. And I really appreciate your knowledge and your spirit. You know, you're the real thing. And I'm gonna send you some tracks, man, to play on.
Send us some tracks, and we gotta thank Paul Cohen here, who is my tech guy and our producer for the show. So give a thumbs up to Paul for
Thank you,
setting
Paul.
everything up for us.
Thank you.
There's Paul.
Paul, friend me on Facebook so I can stay connected.
Will do.
Okay, guys.
Thank you for everything, guys.
Great show. We'll talk to
I'll
you guys
talk to you
soon.
soon, all right? Brian,
Schmooze
Check it
or
out.
lose, man. Keep your geek on.
put your geek on.